Welcome to Ready to Exhale. Today we have Michelle Cassandra Johnson on to talk about her new book, You Are Protected. You're going to love this episode. Let's jump right in. Michelle, so good to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Katara. It's so good to see you and be with you in this space.
It's always good to see you. You have such a calming presence. Every time I see you, I feel like, I can just exhale a little bit more. So thank you for who you are and how you continue to show up in the world and also in my life here and there. You've resurfaced recently through the Highland Project. And so it's been such a joy to actually spend time with you in person too. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. I've loved connecting over the years and also finally in person a couple of times now. So yes.
So good. I want to dive right into this conversation by asking you, what's been bringing you joy or grounding you, or both joy and grounding you lately?
Well, you probably will not be surprised by my answer, which is the more than human world and nature. The expanse of nature really is a salve or balm for me. And, I'm a beekeeper and I have been spending a lot of times just watching my bees, busily bringing in resources, and weathering this time, which is the dearth time. So there are less resources right now, but they're still bringing in pollen, and I assume they're bringing in nectar. And on really hot days, they bring in water. And I also have chickens and got some new pullets, which are younger hens that we had to integrate with the older hens, which is a whole process and an entire podcast episode on its own. And we've been watching them free range in this little area every morning at like 6:30 in the morning. My husband and I will go outside I have honey lemon water, he has coffee, and we just watch the chickens run around and feed them blueberries. And it's simple, but it has brought me so much joy to feel the world wake up and also watch these silly creatures. The chickens and the bees are right next to them. So nature, everything around me that is abundant during this season.
So beautiful. I love that. I love nature too. I don't have chickens, but I have trees and grass.
That's good. That's good enough. You don't need chickens. They're lovely, but everyone doesn't need a chicken, so it's fine.
Yeah. I'm a tree hugger. I love to put my feet in the grass, and that grounds me. Nature. There's something about being outdoors that just, especially in the summer here in Indiana, it's so warm. It gets pretty hot this time of year. But I love being outside in the sun, feet in the grass, little barefoot vibes over here. So that's what's grounding me lately. I love winters are hard here in Indiana. So when summer hits, we spend as much time as we can outside and in nature. So I feel you. Don't have chickens, but I got trees.
You have trees. That is good enough.
How, for those that may be tuning in and listening today who may not know who you are, who is Michelle?
Such a big question. I'll just share that my name is Michelle Cassandra. My middle name's Cassandra. And I share this because some people listening may know that Cassandra in Greek mythology was a prophetess, and her prophecies were true, but she was cursed by Apollo. And the curse was that no one would believe her prophecies, and yet they all came to be. And some prophecies that were about like war and the future of humanity, I would say. And I feel like that's a good place to start. I'm a truth teller. I'm a seer in that way, and totally embody the energy and archetypal expression of Cassandra. And I also want to name that I come from, I love to call on my ancestors, my mother, Clara, and my father, Cornelius, and my grandmothers, Dorothy and Sally, and my grandfathers, Fred and Cornelius, and my great grandmothers, Hopi and Angie, and all the ancestors whose names I do not know, but who move with me all of the time, who are here now. So I have a deep connection with my lineage and ancestors and identify as a living ancestor in this body. So that, coupled with truth telling, looks like bringing things into action that will be an offering or contribution to humanity and the healing that needs to happen on all different levels, individually and collectively right now. And that happens in different ways. I'm an author, I'm a facilitator, I'm a space holder and transformer. I'm someone who sits with people who move through grief. And I also share pretty openly about my own grief. And I'm also someone who's very connected to life-giving practices so that I can sustain my energy and show up fully in my life and in this spinning world. So
Yeah.
that's a little about who I am.
Just a little something, something.
Just a little. I mean, there's so much more, but that's the answer for now. Yeah.
So much more. Doing and being. And, what I'm hearing is while there is a contribution, there's also deep work that you've done here as a human, to be able to bring those offerings to humanity. Um, and thank you for calling in your ancestors. Uh, we welcome them into this space, into this conversation. We honor them. So thank you for that. Um, you have, speaking of author, she's been writing, y'all. She's been writing recently.
For a long time, yes. So many books.
So
Yeah,
many books, but you have a new
it's
offering
true.
that's coming out soon. Can you tell us a little bit? I'm so excited about this. Can you tell us a little bit about what our listeners can be expecting from you come September, I hear?
Yes. 2 months and a day from today, You Are Protected, Invoking Spiritual Support to Sustain Your Energy will be out in the world, launched for all of you. The pre-order is available now. And when people pre-order now, they receive access to a playlist and a booklet of invocations from the book, which are all about protection. And I'll share a little more about that. And some spells. There's a chapter of spells in the book. Chapter 8 is full of spells. And this book, I mentioned my grandmother Dorothy. It was really inspired by Dorothy, which so much of my work has been inspired by Dorothy and my writing. And when I was growing up, my grandmother Dorothy would every morning, I have her coffee cups. They're little brown coffee cups. And she would make coffee and drink coffee out of these tiny little brown cups. And she would read her devotional. And at the end of it, when she finished her coffee and finished reading the devotional, she would say, "That was so good." And for a long time, I noticed her ritual, her morning ritual, but as a child, and it felt special, I didn't really understand the importance of it in my little girl body, witnessing Dorothy. And what I understand about her ritual now is that she had to engage in that to prepare to for the day, to interact with people, to go into the world. And so the introduction is all about Dorothy and her ritual of protection, of sovereignty, of remembering she was a divine being as she faced going into a world that would say otherwise in her Black body. And so You Are Protected is this offering around various protection practices and protective allies that we can call in to sustain our energy, because I know from my own experience, and I know you know this from the practice and work that you engage in the world, that we can't give and give and give without replenishing our energy and turning toward and reconnecting with center and finding that steady place within us that Dorothy accessed when she moved through her morning ritual. And so there's a chapter about elemental energies like air and fire and water and earth, the above and below, a chapter about ancestors and how to call them in, blood ancestors and other ancestors. In our lineage, different wisdom streams. There's a chapter about archetypes, and then one about saints and deities that we can call on for protection, and then a chapter about natural curios like herbs, crystals, oils. And then that chapter about spells puts all of it together. So there's a spell where we use archetypal energy and an oil that we've made, right? Or call in a deity with a prayer or a blessing, or there's a chapter about animal energies as well, or a specific animal that we might call on for protection. And then the book culminates in a final chapter that's focused on spiritual hygiene. So what is my spiritual hygiene plan? What are all of the things that I can do to tend my spirit and inner sanctuary so that I can actually engage in the world more fully and like filled up? And so that's the short version of what this book and body of work is about. And I could not be more excited about this offering.
Oh, so good. I love it. I can't wait to dive in.
Mhm.
I love a little spell and elements that
Yes.
feel very witchy. And when I engage in that way, I'm just like,
Yeah. Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, as somebody who has a cauldron that's 250 years old and it's huge, and we break it out for spells and community gathering, I feel you with that.
Yeah,
And I know people have different associations with witch, but really that's an alchemist. That's the archetype of the alchemist,
that's
right?
right.
Transforming something that's in one form into another, which we definitely need at this time. I mean, I fully claim being a witch, but for some people, they're not going to say that out loud, even though they're doing it undercover.
That's right.
I know a lot of people like that, but they can call it something else. It's more about connecting to that internal magic and medicine and then translating that into some offering for the collective good. That's how I
Yeah.
think about it.
It feels so necessary. I mean, it's always been necessary, but especially right now, especially for Black women, tapping
Yes.
into that part of us. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And I also hear that there is, with this book, with this offering, there is a remembering
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
your grandmother. And I've been talking a lot about in recent things that I've been writing and podcast episodes that I've been on about the ritual of remembering, that the care that I'm calling Black women into with Exhale is not new care, it's remembered care. Uh,
Hmm.
so I'm hearing that too. I'm hearing you remembering your grandmother and then, right, like putting it with like the work that you've done um, personally and even in learning and kind of pulling that all together and bringing that forward um, in this offering in your book. Yeah. Can you
Hmm.
talk a little bit more about remembering and what's happening now and why it's so important, especially for Black women?
Yeah, I think, as a Black woman who I grew up in the US and certainly have been other places, but in the South, I'm from Virginia, which many Black folks will understand that experience and white supremacy and how it shows up and is pervasive regardless of geographic location because of colonization and colonialism. But there's a particular experience in the South, which I think my grandmother, of course, knew and was responding to through her ritual. And as a Black woman, I think it, you know, white supremacy doesn't want me and other Black women to remember and does all of these things to make us forget. the truth of who we are. And many of the rituals, even though I've channeled a lot of the content that's in the book, I often think about how this is information moving through me that was already part of the zeitgeist. Like it was out there and it's moving through me. And to be more specific, that it's in my lineage and wants to come through and come forth now, which has everything to do with Blackness. And even as I say that, I think about how generative Blackness is, how creative Blackness is, how things come from the void and the mystery, which all feels like alchemy to me, which feels like this practice of remembering and then translating in some way that remembrance into our lives or connection with others, right? Just depending on how we want to work with memory. And I'm feeling into as well that as much as white supremacy tries to make me forget, there's some part of me that will always remember where I come from and who I am. I'm very clear. And my ancestors, I mean, to be quite frank, they're not going to let me
No.
forget
Mm-mm.
ever. They just don't roll that way. They don't operate that way. They're not going to allow it. And if they feel me moving away from center, they will do something to bring me back. It has happened
Mm.
time and time again. They will snatch me up and show me, or they will gently say, this is the way. I mean, it feels like those are the two ways that they communicate with me. There's not necessarily a middle path with some of them, but it's all clarity and it's all necessary and it's all part of the process of remembering. And part of this forgetting, and this amnesia that's created by dominance and hierarchies and white supremacy is a disconnection from ritual and ceremony, which we know as Black women that our people were connected in ceremony, in circle, engaging in rituals for the good of whatever it might be, whatever they wanted to conjure.
Uh-huh.
And that's just that's in our like cellular
Yeah.
memory. That's in our DNA. That's imprinted within us. And so I feel like a lot of my work and this book and this conversation is in honor of that remembrance and reconnection to ritual and ceremony, which I just feel like white supremacy doesn't get to take away. Colonialism doesn't get to take that away from me. These are things that are part of me and part of us. And as someone who, my grandmother Dorothy was a domestic worker, as was my great grandmother Angie. And I think about how much the expectation was for them to be a caretaker and in that service role. And even it feels, as I say this, even more important for Black women to return to center, to practice things, to sustain their energy, because the constructs that exist in the world are not going to allow us to replenish ourselves. Like we have to reclaim those practices,
Mm.
particularly in a context such as this, the times we move through. So it feels resonant and relevant for us to know these practices are part of who we are and to actually allow ourselves to pause so that we can remember and reconnect with who we are.
Mhm. Yeah, and the systems that are at play, these oppressive systems, try to keep us so busy
Yes.
that
Yeah.
we don't have time or feel like we don't have time for ritual or for care or for pulling back or for saying no. Um, so in order to reclaim those practices, like what do we do? Where do we start?
Mhm.
For someone
Mhm.
that's listening that's like, I'm trying to just make ends meet. I'm just trying to make things happen. I got to get to work by this time. I got to drop the kids
Yeah.
off by this time. I got to take care of mom and dad and uncle and auntie and them, right? Like, I have so much on my plate. How do I carve out time for myself and how do I reclaim practices? Like, where do I start for those that may
Mhm.
be listening with those questions?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I'm present to the difference in routine and ritual. And so many of us have a routine, like dropping off the kids at school is maybe part of someone's routine, right? Um, or getting up and doing whatever morning ritual we might have or evening ritual for sleep, even if we're not aware of it. But because it feels like a routine because it's rote in that way. It's like something we have to do. We're not even necessarily aware that we're doing it. We do it every day. This is just the flow of energy. And the difference in routine and ritual for me is, I mean, there are vast differences, but one of the definitions for ritual that I work with a lot that my friend Shireen McCauley shared with me is that ritual is an action performed with the body, right? In the body, in connection with spirit, or whatever people think of as spirit source, something bigger, something that moves through, something that is part of them. And so this makes me think about for folks who are, I mean, we're all doing a lot, right? How can we make that I'm getting out of bed to go do whatever it is I do next? How can we actually engage the body in connection with spirit? And this also feels like mindfulness too. Like there's a way I can wash the dishes and hate washing the dishes, or be like, thank you for these dishes and this moment where I just get to wash this plate. And I hope that lands, because it's not that I love washing dishes. I just mean there's a choice point for me to be in appreciation and gratitude of that. Or if I'm about to sit down for a meal, can I say a blessing for the food and those who prepared the food and grew the
Yeah.
food and picked the food? That's a ritual that we can integrate into what we already do. If we eat during the day, right, or we're driving, I'm somebody who can have a lot of road rage internally, not necessarily externally at people, because I want them to move faster. I'm like, get out of my way. I'm a Leo, fire. And I want people to move. And sometimes I'm just like, okay, I'm in this car. I'm driving to wherever I'm going. Thank you for this moment. Right? I don't pull over and stop and disrupt. I'm not late to wherever I'm going. I'm just making that more of a ritual and a moment of appreciation and gratitude as I'm engaged in the activity. So I think that's a place to start, because we all do things that we could turn into a ritual.
Yeah.
I
I love
imagine
that.
there's at least one thing someone does a day that they can be like, okay, can I feel
Yeah.
into this? Can I thank
Yeah. I love
whatever's
that.
happening? Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I've been getting out of the bed slower
Yeah.
as a
That,
ritual, walking a
right?
little bit slower to the bathroom in the morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just, I don't have to get up and hurry. I mean, sometimes
Right.
I have to pee really bad, so I gotta walk a little
And
bit
you gotta
faster, but
hurry. Yes.
I try to move a little bit slower, even in the shower as the water is coming down,
Uh,
just like engaging with like, thank you for this water.
yes.
Thank you
Right.
for this the shower that I have clean water that, so
Yes.
just thinking about, I love that. So I've been trying to weave ritual in,
Mm-hmm.
um, even like on my walks, or like I talked about grass and trees, like pausing for just a few seconds and touching the bark of a tree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not saying anything, I'm not doing anything, I'm just pausing,
Mm-hmm.
taking a deep breath. Like that has become more of a ritual for me than,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can get back to my speed walk or my
Right.
leisurely walk, right? But like fitting in these moments, versus the metaphor that I've used is standing behind myself, shoving myself into
Mm.
my day, throughout my
Mm-hmm.
day,
Mm-hmm.
hurry, hurry, hurry. We got to go, go, go. It's like, what if I just back up a little bit? What if I get in front of myself and like invite myself into the day? Like, what does that look
Yes.
like? How does that feel inside my body? What am I saying to myself? If it's more of an invitation versus hurry up, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
I love weaving in ritual into routines that we already engage in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah. I think
beautiful.
that's the place to begin, and it doesn't require something else, a meditation cushion or what you right. I have one of those, but there are opportunities to engage in ritual throughout the day, many, countless opportunities. It's just noticing what are those and playing with one of those, like the ones that you just shared, right? Moving a
Yeah.
little slower, right? That, and just feeling, what is that like? Yeah.
Yeah. It also feels like that ritual turns into like I'm caring for myself. Like we hear this
Mm-hmm.
word self-care, self-care, self-care. Um, but for me, that's what it feels like. It feels like I'm creating more space to kind of like hold myself in a more caring, um, loving way versus, oh my God, Katara, you got up late or you haven't been to the gym yet, like fussing at myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Weaving these rituals feels it feels like I'm holding myself more, like caring for myself, being more gentle with myself, and that feels really important for me right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's important for us all, particularly as Black women, that
Yeah,
the dominant cultural norms are not going to care about us. So we're going to have to do it for ourselves and in community, right? In affinity with others. And I feel like that's such a beautiful framing of it, that it's nourishing. It's why, the subtitle is like to sustain your energy, the spiritual support, right? It's nourishing. It is turning toward yourself enough to say, what do I need right now?
yeah,
Or how am I right now? Or let me take a deep breath, right? Or let me move at a different pace. Or notice what is around me and what is alive that is around me and feel into that and my connection to it. And so that just sounds so, I mean, I can feel that in my body, that nourishment just from those words.
yeah.
Um, and it is a way to care for ourselves in a context where that may not be reflected back to us or provided to us. And so how do we find those spaces of care or create them for ourselves, but also in community with others?
That's right. There's something about in community with others that um like that can't be left out, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that um the way in which colonization works is this like individual, like me, mine, um, this individualism. And also, like when we think about the wellness industry, it's so, it just centers whiteness and it feels disconnected from community. And just growing up in a Black community where everybody looked out for each other. Like my grandmother taught me about community care. Like we are not separate from community. I would be riding my bike and people who didn't maybe
Mm-hmm.
recognize me would ask me like, "What's your last name?
Right.
Who's your mama?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say, and they're like, "Oh, you're Betty's daughter. Yeah, you live up there on Jefferson,
Right.
right? And your uncle is so and so, and your great uncle is so and so. And I remember your grandma, your great grandmother, and she lived
Mm-hmm.
down by the railroad tracks." And they start connecting the dots of like, I know you. I don't know
Yes.
you, but I know you because of community, because of family. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been remembering that so much just since I launched Exhale, even before that, there's always been this. It's like you talk about your ancestors, like, don't forget, like,
Mm-hmm.
this is who you are. You are a daughter
Yeah.
of community. You are a daughter of community care. And that is so, so, so essential to my well being, our well being. It's so important to be
Mm-hmm.
connected to community. And I think that the ways in which these oppressive systems work, it's to get us disconnected from each other,
Yes.
disconnected from community when that is uh, not just a way to survive, but it is a pathway to thriving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had this image years ago. I listened to you years ago, I listened to this podcast, and I don't even remember what it was about, but there was one part of it where the guest shared about resilience, which it's not my favorite word. That's a whole other podcast episode too. And they were talking about resilience and the backbone, like the structure of our anatomy, and bones. And they talked about how sometimes people think about resilience and strength coming from the actual vertebrae. And what they talked about is the muscles around the vertebrae actually creating the support that's needed to uphold the vertebrae and that structure. And I go back to that all the time. And that image came to me because I thought about community and like ancestors as those muscles around my backbone, which allows me to stand upright. And that's how it works. And without that, right, I wouldn't be able to show up in the ways I do. And so that is the image that you conjured when you shared about your community and all the people who knew you, right? Who didn't know you, but knew where you came from, which meant they also claimed you in this way of like, I got you. I see you. And if you act up, I'm going to call your grandma. I mean, this was right? I'm going to call your grandma, your aunt, your great grandma. I'm going to tell them to get you, like this happened at church all the time
All
where
the time.
so and so was going to tell somebody else if you were not acting right in integrity and showing up, which I also deeply appreciate now. I didn't at the time, but when I was younger, but I so appreciate that upbringing, because it feels like, we know the adage of like it takes a village to raise, right, fill a child or fill in the blank. And I think that doesn't just apply to children. I think it's like all of us. We need our village.
That's right.
Yeah, and so that is part of the healing and the drawing back into center and the steadiness that we can conjure comes from that community, right? Because isolation
Yeah.
is a strategy of dominant culture for sure, and separation, and we know it's an old strategy. And still, I think we find ways to be in affinity with one another because we know we need that, as you said, to thrive.
That's right.
As Black women, we have everyday stressors, and those stressors are compounded by systemic racism. This stress weathers our mental and emotional health. It's imperative to move this stress out of our bodies so we can live healthier and happier lives. Exhale app is a resource to partner with you in your well-being journey. To download, go to the App Store and Google Play. Now, let's get back to our episode.
Well, I'd love to shift this conversation, and maybe it's not a huge shift, but you have been on socials talking about your bees. You mentioned beekeeping at the top of the episode. What have the bees taught you?
So much. And there actually is a little section about the bees and You Are Protected. And I've been a beekeeper since 2019, and I feel like it's very connected to what we're talking about with remembering and with ancestry and lineage and community, because the bees, one of the main lessons they've taught me is about unity consciousness, which was my orientation to the world to begin with. I mean, that's how I came in. That's how my people raised me. And also, it's something that's been reflected back to me because bees are a superorganism, which means that an individual bee does not think of themselves as an individual. They are an extension of the hive, which I think very much relates to what we just shared about community, right? We come from each other. And so witnessing that unity consciousness and then what they will do to support their hive, including how they adapt based on what is needed. They all have different roles to work collectively to sustain the hive. And one of the lessons that I always return to is, bees don't live for that long. The life cycle where I live for a worker bee is about 6 weeks. winter bees live longer because they have to get the hive through winter. And there's medicine in us working with that energy as well. Like what is required to weather this season. It's such a profound lesson. And given that they don't live for very long, they labor in all of these ways and actually bring in resources like nectar, which will be turned into honey, and pollen to feed the brood, the babies. They bring in these resources and they might not be alive to see the benefit of those, right? Because they might die by the time the brood is born, because being a forager is the last stage of their life cycle. So they're close to death at that point when they go out and their job is to gather resources for a hive that they will eventually transition out of as they leave their bodies. And I feel like that's so beautiful to remember, and that feels ancestral too, right? To remember the way my ancestors labored so that I could be exactly where I am right now, even though many of them are no longer earthside. Like I will return to that medicine over and over and over, as a way to help me stay on track, right, with what I'm doing, and to trust that what I offer will benefit folks now and the more than human world now, and the future as well, in future generations, even if I don't see it in physical form, earthside. So there's so much about the bees, but those are some of the lessons. They're astounding creatures, and they really mirror to us what is going on with us and also what we need to know. So there's so much learning from them, just from witnessing them or listening to their hum and attuning to it, watching how they move and work and dance.
Mm. Sounds like, community and what I've learned through being a part of the Highland Project is legacy. And something
Mm-hmm.
that we talked about and did rituals around was thinking about 7 generations from now,
Mm-hmm.
um, which means we won't be Earthside, but what will remain, um, and how important that is for us to be thinking about legacy in that way. So that brings that up for me when you're talking about the bees that are at the end of their life cycle and what they are building isn't for them.
Mm-hmm.
It will be for um, future generations
Mm-hmm.
of bees.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sitting with me too. Is legacy. Yeah, it's coming up for me.
Yeah, I love that connection to legacy and lineage and offering.
Legacy and
And
lineage.
yeah, and you made me think of one other experience with the bees, which is I had a hive that they didn't make it through winter. This was about 3 years ago, which happens because of climate chaos and shifting conditions and weather patterns that are difficult to adapt to. And the way my bees tell me what's going on is through my dreams. So I knew that I kind of knew I'd had a dream, but I didn't want to know that they had transitioned. There was a hive that I'd had for 4 years. It had lived for a long generation after generation of bees. And I mean, that hive sustained for a very long time.
Wow.
Um, and I went out and it was winter, so they weren't outside, and I used a stethoscope, which some people use to put up to the hive to hear them because they're very quiet in the winter. And I thought I could hear them because I thought I could hear their hum. It turns out I don't know what I heard, but I'm sharing this because what I thought about after in this experience of like, I heard them humming. My husband even said, I hear them, but they were not alive at that point in time. And we just didn't know it until we opened the hive. It made me think about the fact that bees from that lineage of bees had lived in that box, which is wood, for 4 years. And they had changed the structure of the woods so much so that we kept hearing their vibration, but they were no longer earthside. And I feel like there's so, I mean, that just, I have so many feelings about that, because I think about the way we change spaces, right? The vibration of who we were. And even my grandmother, Dorothy, is still very present with me. I've shared her name multiple times in this conversation, right? And so trusting that our vibration will change the shape, the structure of, even create new structures of what is, and that can be experienced and heard and felt well beyond the time when we leave our physical bodies. So I haven't shared that story much, but it came to me when you were talking about Highland and legacy, and it just made me think about vibration. Like, we change the spaces we're in, even if we can't see that. It is felt, it is heard well into the future. So trusting that feels important. I know. Thank you, Bees. Thanks for that memory.
Thank you, bees. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. We're changing, even just our presence showing up in spaces,
Yes.
our energy
Mm-hmm.
is living, 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 right?
Yeah.
Ugh. The memory that's coming to me is my mom lives about an hour and 15 minutes north of me, and about 2 or 3 times a year I'll stop at the graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
Some people think I'm so weird, but I love
You're
a
not weird.
graveyard. I
I do
love
too. I do too. Quiet.
the best. And there's one area of the graveyard where all my family that's now deceased, great uncles, great aunts, um, great grandmother, my grandmother, my uncle are all buried in this area of the graveyard. And
Mm-hmm.
I just go back and I'll park my car and I'll just walk through and read the names and sit by my grandmother's grave. And I can feel her.
Yes.
I can feel her. And it's not just I remember her and I'm having memories, but I can feel her energy and her presence. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what's coming up for me. I don't know. It just is
Mm-hmm.
kind of floating out there, and I just wanted to name that um, there's something really powerful that keeps, like you said, you heard the bees. You could hear them. There was a shifting and a changing that
Mm-hmm.
happened that you could still hear them. And I think that our ancestors are ready to be heard. They are being heard.
Indeed.
And it's just really, really powerful. So thank you for bringing that into this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing your experience and the hearing. It feels like it's connected to remembering, right? And that we come from some place, and that place is not lost even when our ancestors are no longer in physical form, right? We can feel them, we can hear them. They wish to share story. Dorothy shares story through me all the time, and people have heard me. I'll be like, my grandmother wanted y'all to know that, because I know it's not me. It's not me. She has a thing she wants to say, and she makes sure that I say it. It happens all the time with her.
Yeah,
And I'm like, okay, well, I'm happy to be the channel for your voice and what it is, your medicine that you want to share now. Happy to
that's
do it.
right. That's right. So beautiful. When Black women begin choosing lives rooted in protecting our energy and our well being, so protecting our energy, protecting our well being, what shifts or what's possible?
Well, freedom comes to mind. That's the first word. Um, in all the ways, freedom of expression, freedom of movement, freedom to say no, freedom to say yes, freedom not to explain ourselves, to sit and observe, right? To speak when we want to speak, to play with these different archetypal energies, that kind of freedom. Because our energy isn't leaking out in these places or being taken, but leaking out in these places, conscious to us or unconscious, where we are emptied out. And I've been thinking about this a lot over the past 2 days, like how much I've said no a few times over the past couple days, which is not an edge for me necessarily. I really love boundaries. And I really like to be discerning about what is mine and what is not. But that has taken practice and time. And I think that's one of the benefits of protecting our energy and our well-being and saying yes or no to what might nourish us. Because there are things I think about my mom, my mom has Alzheimer's. There are responsibilities I have to her that sure, maybe I have a choice, but not really. Like, she's my mom and I'm going to care for her. But then there are all these other places where I have choice, where I don't have to be obligated to. And I'm not saying she obligates me, but I'm her daughter and I'm going to care for her. That's what I'm saying. That feels clear to me for this season. And that also means that I have to redirect my energy in other ways, because there's a lot of energy going into caretaking and decision making and paying her bills and doing all the things. And so I have to be discerning, and freedom comes through discernment too. It's this, so I can feel that in my body, like more movement, right? A deeper exhale, that pause that can happen when I am in my center enough to really contemplate, is this something I want to do or not? Do I need to do this? Maybe not. Do I want to do it now? No. Right? Like that, I think, is what comes from it. There's a reclamation of our well-being and our center and our steadiness and what we need to serve this and feed this untouchable part of us, which feels like lineage too, right? This unwavering part, which other people and systems, oppressive systems, they don't get to take all of me, right? And really, ultimately, any of me.
Sure.
And that's what comes from protecting our well-being and our energy.
And I think that's where the rituals come in, of protecting ourselves, of empowering ourselves to say no, to set those boundaries, to protect our energy, really aid us in that. Like that is part of the work, right? Is as I engage in caring for myself, um, it protects me,
Yeah.
it protects my energy, it protects my future, it protects future generations, right? Um, in that, and why that's so important to do that work.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so good.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Um, we've been, many Black women, I mean, we've been taught to kind of hold everything together for everyone else. Um, we've been talking about freedom. It's hard for us to let go. It's hard for us
Mhm.
to not hold everything and everybody together. Um, when we choose freedom for ourselves, sometimes we feel really guilty. Ooh, I know I do.
Yeah.
How do we move past that guilt? Like, is there a remedy for that?
Yeah, I will share an example of this. That I mentioned my mom, and it's been a rough season and an adjustment for us all. My mom, me, my husband, my stepdaughter, like everybody in community with us, to hold our lives together and also
Yeah.
hold my mom's life together, really, to care for her. And she's not a burden. I don't mean it in that way. It's just an acknowledgement that it's been a lot and an adjustment. And there was this moment where initially when she moved to North Carolina, we moved her here, where I feel like I was running myself ragged because I was adjusting to what was going on. And then she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So there was this, what is even happening? And she was in her own adjustment. And now there's this diagnosis. Okay. That explains some about what's going on, but what's the trajectory? And there was this point where I thought to myself, if I run myself ragged, trying to do all of the things, then I will be sick. That was the very clear message. And I'm not afraid to ask for help. So that's not the edge for me. But it was like, I need some help from somewhere, from somebody, multiple people to respond to this season, in this season of my life, to these conditions that feel at times just untenable because it's just too much. And that clarity of like, something will happen to my well-being as I'm trying to support my mom's well-being. And if I'm not well, my mom is not, no one will do the things that I do for her. I mean, it's just, anything could happen to me, but there was clarity about, I need to shift something here. And there's a lot of, I felt some kind of way about it and that guilt, because it meant at times not saying no overtly to her, but being like, I actually can't go there now, or I need someone else to take her to this doctor's appointment, or I need my husband to go over and check on her instead of me today. Because there's also been a lot of, her Alzheimer's is expressed, there's a lot of anger and it's mostly directed at me. So there was part of me that was like, I actually can't do that every day. That I can't caretake and also be emotionally beat up every day. It's not her fault.
Right.
It's not her fault. I was like, I have to do something, because all of that was it was affecting my nervous system, my body. It was like all going in. Her words hurt a lot. And so I share this as an example because I think it's one of the places where many of us might feel the most amount of guilt. Like, it's my mom, but I've had to set boundaries internally for myself to be like, I actually can't do that. Or I can't call after 5 p.m. because of sundowning syndrome when her Alzheimer's symptoms are worse, right? Like, I can't, I've just learned I've created some strategies for myself to sustain my energy so that I can show up in those moments where fully for her versus trying to do it like all the time. And at this moment now, I don't feel guilty about that. I feel like that is me being really wise in collaboration with my ancestors, for sure, being wise about what is possible and what my limits are in this season, because it's temporary, right? During this season. So I think, we make adjustments and we honor when there's guilt and tenderness, really. And we also honor that we can't be everything as Black women to everyone all of the time, because that means we don't have energy to be what we want to be and need to be for ourselves.
Yeah. I love you.
I love you too.
You're a good daughter.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that.
You're a good daughter. Yeah, you're showing up for your mom. And I hear you showing up for yourself. And that's hard to do, to hold both. And I think you really brought that into this space. And for those that are listening, that we can prioritize ourselves while also deeply loving and showing up in caretaking ways for the people that we love and care about. That it's both and, not one or the other, right? Like, we can bring ourselves into the center of our lives and prioritize ourselves too, right? That we can do that too. That it's not good for anybody if we're completely depleted, running on E or empty, right? It's not good. It's just not good. It's not good for us. It's not good for the people that we want to show up for. And so carving out, I heard you use the word strategy, to come up with a strategy of how to navigate this this circumstance, this situation,
Yes.
showing up. But you had to be strategic in how you took care of you too. And that's what I'm hearing. That's for me, and hopefully the user or the listeners, those that are listening to this episode hear that that you can get strategic around your protecting your energy, caring for yourself while also showing up for community, loved ones, right? Aging parents. Um, and to lean into that muscle that we're really good at being strategic.
Yes, we are. We
But
really
being
are.
strategic about bringing ourselves into really the center of our own lives, right? Taking center stage and being like, I need to care for myself too. Hold on. Hold on a second. What works for me? What doesn't work for me? Yeah, is what I'm hearing. So
Yeah,
thank you
I
for
love
that.
that. I love the center of our lives, right? Center stage in that way, not in an egoic way, of course, but in a
Sure.
like, oh, I'm here too, right?
That's right.
I can care for myself too. I can turn toward myself. I think that's so vital and essential. So I love that framing of it.
Yeah. I feel like this conversation went so quickly. It always
Always.
does when I'm in your presence. But as we close our conversation, I have one question, one final. It's kind of like a fill in the blank that I ask all my guests when they come on ready to exhale. Um, when Black women exhale, I want you to fill in the blank. How would you complete that sentence? When Black women exhale.
This is not, it's an image. So I hope it's okay to share the image.
Of
This is what I
course.
saw. It wasn't well, bouquet would be the word, or bloom maybe would be the word. But I have a garden and I have a lot of flowers in it right now in bloom. And so the image was this bouquet that I picked the other day, which was bee balm, starflower, a sunflower, some roses, some rosemary, some lavender is in it as well, and some black-eyed Susan
Mm.
flowers. There may be something, lemon balm. That I've always wanted a garden where I could go out and pick flowers from it. Like enough to make a bouquet, and I can do that a lot now with what I've planted and cultivated just here where I am. And so the bouquet, the image of it, is what came to mind. So maybe it's flourish or bloom or blossom when we exhale, but I really want people to be with that image and the medicine in all of those flowers and herbs too. Each one is medicinal in some way. So that's my offering, this beautiful bouquet of flowers.
I love it. I can see it. I can smell it. I can feel it, touch it. Thank you for that. How can those that are tuning in to this episode, how can we support you, support your work? I know you have your book coming out. Like, what are ways that those that may be hearing you for the first time or for the 50th time, how can we show up for you?
Thank you for this question. So folks can connect with me through my website is a place where there's information about what I offer, virtual offerings or in person, and that's michellecjohnson.com. But there's also, when people go to that, an opportunity to subscribe to my newsletter, which I've heard is like having a cup of tea with me. And it ranges in topic. There's a lot of nature. There's some storytelling, mythology, storytelling about my mom, storytelling about the moment we're in, and then practices I offer through that. So if people, there are meditations or sometimes sound healings that I offer, short practices for people and rituals really for people to integrate, and journaling prompts, of course. I love a journaling prompt. So that's a good way to connect with me and just learn more, and also have this meditative, reflective time to read my newsletter. And the book, as we talked about, comes out September 15th. So I'm planning some events right now. If anybody listening wants me to come to their city to do a book event or a facilitation, because the book lends itself to, workshop or facilitation where we move through ritual together, I would be happy to do that. And folks can reach out through my website if they're interested in my coming to give a talk or guide one of the rituals from the book. And there are various other ways, but those are the main ways that people, and pre-order the book, I'd say, and share it with people, because I'd love for it to reach a lot of people and to support folks in sustaining their energy.
Awesome. All right, listeners, you've got your marching orders. We'll put all the links in the show notes. Michelle, thank you for just being in this container with me. I am confident that this conversation is going to touch so many of those that are tuning in. So thank you for your time. I just adore you. I appreciate you. And I'm here for you. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Katara. I love you, and I appreciate you and all that you offer and share with us. So thank you for inviting me to be here with you today.
Thanks for tuning in to Ready to Exhale. Until next time, may you find moments to pause and exhale.